respond to them afterwards. I think that's it. Jade, is there any other housekeeping I need to think about?
No, nothing at all. I think just
Great.
adding questions, and I think you already said about the questions in the chat for the Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, so today we're going to be hearing about, I think, really exciting and significant Australian initiative, which is supporting academic policy engagement, which is the James Martin Institute for Public Policy. And I'm really thrilled that Libby Hackett, who is the inaugural CEO, is joining us. She will tell you a little bit more about the JMI, but just briefly, it's a really interesting model, I think, because it's a joint venture between the government and universities in New South Wales, and it's focused explicitly on identifying policy demand and then leveraging academic expertise to address that demand. Before she moved to the GMI, Libby held a number of senior advisory and leadership roles in government, parliament, think tanks and private sector consultancy, working in Australia and the UK. I should probably say Libby and I both met actually when she recruited me to join the Russell Group. So I've known her for some time, and now our paths are converging again, which is lovely. So Libby is going to sketch out for us what the JMI does, its work, some of the approaches it takes to building academic policy engagement, and then we'll just have an open and relatively informal discussion about any burning questions you have, particular challenges, lessons learned, all those sorts of things. But that's enough for me, I think. Over to Libby.
Thank you, Sarah, and so lovely to see all of you here this afternoon. Thank you. I always think when I'm presenting about the JMI, it's always slightly disappointing that I have a British accent still. But as Sarah said, I was 15 years in the UK working at that interface between government and universities in various roles, and now 10 years in Australia, and currently is the Chief Executive of the James Martin Institute for Public Policy, which I'm delighted to tell you a little bit about as a really interesting and innovative model. As Sarah said, it is genuinely a joint venture between government and universities in Australia, and we're doing a lot of the practical stuff that UPenn is really interested in, and a lot of that, exactly as Sarah described, policy identification, and then the bringing of the academic expertise into that, harnessing of the academic expertise into those policy challenges. So I'm going to share my screen, and we will jump into a few slides. And I'm hoping this is pretty quick, and then we've got plenty of time for questions as well. I'm really keen to talk to you about the things that you're most interested in. So we are the James Martin Public Policy Institute, or Institute for Public Policy. So this is our premier in New South Wales, and we love this slide because it's really just demonstrating how much the government loves us as a partner. So we were founded by government, and I think it is sort of in our DNA that we have that level of support from our government partners, and it's been crucial to our success in the first three and a half years. So this is our premier talking about the fact that we're setting world standards in connecting policymakers and experts to solve complex problems. And bear in mind that this is not the Premier of New South Wales that launched JMI. So we were launched under a Liberal coalition, which, let me translate to tell you that means that it's like a Conservative coalition government. And then now we have a Labour government as of about 18 months ago, and Chris Minns is our premier under a Labour government. And so we have done that transition of government in our first 3.5 years, and we're really excited to see that as a partner of government, we have a 20-year formal agreement in place with government, and that has certainly seen us through our first change in government, which is brilliant. So really getting to the heart of the James Martin Institute, we are genuinely a joint venture, as I said, and a partnership for the public good. So we were founded, well, I'll talk about that in a moment, actually. Let's talk about some of the core pillars that define our institute. So we're not a think tank, we're not an academic institute, we're not a consulting firm that sort of sits within government. We're not that either. So there's lots of things that we're not. So what are we, and what does it mean to be a joint venture? So these are the sort of the pillars that define us. We are genuinely a government university partnership, and what that means is that, you know, both sides put in, both sides back it. We support both sides of our partnership, and honestly, some of the radicalness of what we're trying to do is the fact that it is a joint venture. So it's pretty rare for government and universities to come together in equal partnership on equal terms to try and tackle collectively shared problems. So in this example, the government and universities have come together to solve public policy challenges, the biggest, most complex, wicked challenges that we're all facing. Now, government is always trying to tackle those. Our university academics are often undertaking research that attempt to tackle those challenges. But this is quite a rare example of a genuinely joint venture of those organisations coming together on a level platform, level playing field, to work together to solve some of these issues. So really interesting. Even the concept of it is quite unusual and quite rare. Ask me another time when we're not being recorded, but there was 18 months worth of machinations around the governance of this before we even launched. So we say we're just over 3 years in, and that's true since the launch, but it took a long time to work out how this entity was going to work as a mutually funded joint venture, joint governed venture by government university. So fascinating story. So we are on the 3 o'clock pillar. We're government responsive. This is a pillar that has really defined us from the get-go. So we do start with our government partners. We allow government to commission all of our work. The government tell us what their major challenges are, and we work as an entity to then go and identify the experts and bring that expertise into government. But we start with government. We are government responsive, and it's a really important part of our model. And it means that I think it means that we have incredible value to our university partners, because as they come into our projects, they know that they will be working with ministers, with department secretaries on live issues, with decision makers that are making those critical decisions. And they get that level of influence through our projects, which is incredible. But it's because we're government responsive. So that's a really important pillar. 6 o'clock, it's a collaborative model. We'll talk more about this, and this reflects the joint venture idea as well. But all of our projects are collaborative. So what does that mean? It means that our project teams, we second a couple of people out of government onto the project team, and then we second some academics, junior academics, into our project teams. And then we have an expert advisory group that sits over the top of every project that has our senior distinguished professors and other brilliant academics on it, and also our senior government colleagues. So we care about the authorising environment for the work that we're undertaking and the recommendations that ultimately the team is making. And so we bring together the government side and the academic side in the report team, in the project team, and through that EAG, the expert advisory group. And it makes it quite a unique model. So that's something that is, as you can imagine, hard to do, hard to get off the ground, hard to deliver. We've done about 19, 20 of these in the first 3 years, but they're incredibly powerful, incredibly impactful, because the government colleague is baked, the impact of these, the delivery, the implementation is baked into the model. And our academics get that really close insight and proximity of walking alongside decision makers in government, trying to solve problems with them in real time. So it's a really, really distinct model. And then the 9 o'clock, the shared revenue model, we just insist that everyone's got skin in the game. And so we were funded through an endowment by government to begin with, but then they fund project by project. And our universities then pay on an annual basis as well. So the total funding we get is about 50-50 split between our university and our government partners. We would love to receive funding from philanthropy and other sources. We are a charity, but I think that's going to take a bit of time to build, because the big foundations get near us and they say, well, you have government funding and you have university funding. Why would we give you extra funding? But the point is, of course, that we're trying to build the fabric of our democracy, and there's much more we could do with more resources. So I would love to make the case, but we'll do that another time. So this is the outline of our little joint venture and our prototype that we've been building. As I said, so it sort of outlines the funding parameters as well. So there was the government partner investment, the endowment to begin with, and that the New South Wales government put that up as a competitive tender for universities to bid for. So how interesting. Government said, here's $10 million. We want you to create an independent entity that will harness academic expertise to inform us. We want more evidence. We want better access to your experts. So please bid. Get together in groups and please bid to set up this entity with us as a joint venture. So a couple of groups did. There was a particular group of 3 universities that won the bid. It was a competitive tender process. And we've now gone from 3 universities to 7 universities. And we are hoping to shortly sign a partnership agreement with our second major government. So we are talking to the Commonwealth government, the federal government, the Australian government, whatever name you want to give it, as opposed to a state government where we've started. So we would then have Commonwealth and state government representation or partnerships. Bearing in mind, of course, for those who aren't as familiar with Australia, Australia is a federalised system, much more like the US than the UK. So we have those big state governments with lots of funding, lots of policy capability within the state, and then a Commonwealth government or a federal national government that oversees all of that. So for those two buckets of investment and engagement, what do they get? Those four big chunks through the middle are really our major programs. So we deliver subsidised policy projects, which are the collaborative projects I just described. We also have a rapid response capability where we can give answers on a particular problem to a secretary or a minister in just a couple of weeks and have demonstrated that is expert informed. We have basically a training capability, so subsidised policy capacity building, which is our training arm. JMI Futures just launched this year, but we're going back into government, helping them rebuild their policy capability, which has been underinvested in over the last decade. We're also going into our university partners and helping them to understand how to work well with government. And then third along their JMI supported policy grants and fellows. As you can imagine, we have 7 university partners and they're giving us funding every year. And it's great that they can be involved in the projects. But one way that we like to work with our universities and keep them on side is that we have a grants round. So we give away about $1 million in grants each year. And that is an annual grant round. Groups of researchers get together, bid for these grants. The rule is they have to be able to demonstrate that the research or the application of their research they will undertake is useful to government. So they have to demonstrate a receiver, a partner in government that wants or needs this work. This idea of usefulness to government goes right through the DNA of our organisation. So it's a grant plus model, so they get a grant to undertake their translation work, and then they get the support of our team, the JMI team, to do all of their government engagement work. And we don't leave them alone to do that. We support them right through, and those can run for 18 months up to 2 years. We don't fund any academic output, so we don't fund journal articles or academic research articles out of that. We ask them to write policy reports, which we give them the sort of framing of how to do that and train them up in how to do that. But of course, academic publications can be written over that time period and they can be published on the side. We've got no objection to that, but we don't fund that. We fund the application of either existing or new research into government to support a policy solution. And then finally, we have the policy networks and thought leadership. So this is where we're going out and doing stuff a little bit like UPenn, not quite as all across the sector, but we do have broad networks of policy colleagues that we engage with across government. We have a community of practice of public policy colleagues. There are 3,500 colleagues in that community of practice just in New South Wales. So we engage with them quite a lot and bring experts in front of them to talk about all sorts of topics and talk about all kinds of policy theory things as well. We have a digital platform called The Policy Maker, which we just published our 100th article, and that is a collection of short form articles. The rule on that one, because we love a rule, is that there has to be a solution to a particular problem. So we're not spending 800 words admiring the problem. We're putting forward a really smart solution to a particular policy challenge. And the spread of authors is probably about 50% academic and about 50% government expert, policy expert, think tank experts, consulting experts, etc. So it's a really nice broad mix across a range of policy areas. And they've started to join policy hubs and all kinds of policy communities building around the policymaker. And you can see our impact targets that are on there. I'll talk a little bit more about our approach to impact and evaluation. So we, JMI, James Martin Institute, we believe that we're part of this growing ecosystem of evidence institutes that have been emerging over the last sort of decade or so, and the work that Sarah and others have been doing across CAPE and UPenn and with the Open Innovation team in the UK government as well. So there are examples of this in the UK, but also emerging Canada, US and Australia as well. So this idea of an evidence institute was a bit broader than what we do, which is that bridging kind of brokering thing. These evidence institutes, so some of them are think tanks, but they're specifically organizations that deal with evidence, they handle evidence and then seek to apply that into a government context, into a policy context. So it's nice to be a part of something bigger than yourself, right? Australia can feel like quite a distant place sometimes, so it's nice to be part of that bigger network. So we have a pretty ambitious vision for the Institute. As I said, we've been building the prototype in New South Wales. We're about to partner with the Commonwealth Government, which is really exciting for us. Over time, we would like to be operating right across the nation of Australia, in every state and territory, and with Commonwealth Government. And alongside that, we would in parallel hope to be building a network of partnerships internationally. And this is not us trying to take over the world, it's us recognizing that there are many other people, brilliant people across many countries. There aren't many highlighted on that map, but there are many more countries beside where this sort of work is of growing importance and prevalence. Look, we're all tackling increasingly complex public policy challenges, and the role of experts and evidence in that has been on a bumpy ride, but I think that the complexity of our challenges means that we cannot get away from this need for experts. And actually the way, through AI, through a million different reasons, the way we're able to harness that expertise and evidence in this increasingly rapid decision-making environment for government is something that a lot of people are trying to focus on and to try and improve. As I said, I love this phrase about strengthening the fabric of our democracy. And there are lots of people trying to do that around the world, which is exciting. So this is our chair, Professor Peter Shergold, who's like the living embodiment of what we do. So he was the head of the Australian Public Service for many years, also is a professor in his own right and had an academic career. And he's really passionate about this. He describes JMI as his intellectual home that he's been searching for the last 3 decades. So we'll take that as a compliment. And he's been absolutely fantastic about bridging those the very, very different approaches that our government and our academic colleagues take on many issues. So diving into our programs just a tiny bit, I've mentioned some of these, so I won't stay on it too long. We can come back to this if people have got questions, but these are the 4 areas that we do or we deliver. So we have subsidised policy projects. So government does fund these projects. They're either collaborative projects or there are rapid response projects. And so they run for sort of 3 to 6 months. Collaborative projects, which is quite fun because government thinks those are really slow and academics think that you can't do anything in 3 to 6 months. So it was an interesting place to kind of land. It's our deep thinking project. And then we have a rapid response capability. And honestly, if we wanted to, we could just do that because the demand for expert informed, rapid information from a trusted source is extremely high, and we've been able to do that in the form of briefings or workshops or whatever the minister or the secretary, whoever it is, needs. And then I mentioned our grants. We also have a fellowship program, which is just fantastic. So we're able to bring academics out either seconded or whilst they're undertaking an academic period of study or research sabbatical. Then they come to us for a little while, 3 months normally, full-time, but they can do part-time if they're teaching, but they come to us full-time. And we support, they sit in our team, they sit in our office in central Sydney, and we support them with all of their government engagement. So usually it's somebody that has done an extended period of research in a particular area, and the fellowship opportunity is about applying that, the impact of that into government. So we support them to do that. And it's a 2-way program. So we also have fellows that come out from government, and those are recognised experts in a particular area. Never underestimate the expertise of our public service in certain areas. So we bring brilliant experts out of the public service and we connect them in to leading academics and academic networks so that they can really build the muscle of their expertise in cutting edge knowledge and evidence and capability over their time with us. They write a policy paper and they take it back in to their role in government and apply it straight back in. So it's been incredibly impactful in some areas. We've got our training, which I've talked about, subsidised capacity building on both sides. Always for us, it's on both sides, so with government and with universities. And then our policy networks and thought leadership through the policymaker, through our network building opportunities, through our publications, events, and digital and branding. And just to settle in there a little bit, we do these really fun impact stories, which are a bit like ref case studies, but they're a bit shorter and cooler they're sort of just like a quick video capture or Insta type approach to not just what we found during the project, but how we did the project. So the story of the collaborative project. And we've had incredible interaction and interest in those impact stories beyond just the findings of the particular policy recommendations. So that's been a real learning curve for us to see the value of doing that. And as academics, I should say, we do provide all of our academic colleagues that either come on a project team or an EAG or a fellowship or a grant or whatever. We provide them all with an impact, it's basically a letter, but it sort of sets out the contribution that they made, the engagements that they had across government, and the impact or projected impact of that work, or impact kind of signals that we're getting from that work. And we share that back with them. And we get really good feedback about how useful that is to provide back into their own HR systems around, annual reviews or promotion panels or whatever it is, and that demonstration of impact into government. So just to completely give away our IP that we've been building for the last 3 years, but we're very happy to share it with people. This is how we do our collaborative project. So as I said, these are government commissioned projects. The government always identify the problem. We are government responsive. So they identify the problem. Then we do project scoping, and we love projects where the problem isn't actually that neatly identified, because we're able to bring experts around the table and do some of those expert workshops and deep dives, even in the scoping phase. So it's often the case that the minister's office or the department or whoever it is, they've got this sort of emerging issue, but they can't quite pin it down. And so it's really impactful for our experts to be able to come at that incredibly early stage of defining the problem. I've always said, Sarah will tell me off, I've always said, if you can help define the problem, then you can help define the solution to the problem. And I think this is a really powerful trust-based way of working as a partner of government. So we help with the scoping. Then we have a really well-developed partnership activation model. So we have university key contacts that sit within each of our university partners. They work for us 2 days a week, but sit in the university, and their job is almost primarily almost exclusively to find experts for us. It's primarily to find it. They also find us event spaces and speakers and a million different things, but primarily they find us experts to work on projects or problem solving issues that we've got. And then we, as I mentioned, we second government colleagues out into the project team as well. Then the collaborative project delivery, we've built models and ways to do this through integrated project teams. I think it's probably the hardest thing that we do as an organisation, but it's the most impactful and the most beneficial. So as I said, we've done about 20 of these. We have an incredible research and policy project team that are brilliant at doing these. Every project looks different. They will always look different, but the core elements of an integrated mixed project team and an expert advisory group is a core part of that. And then, of course, we're engaging a huge range of expert practitioners, industry community, etc., beyond our academic colleagues. Although, as we always tell government, our academics are permanently working with those experts, practitioners, industry and community. And so sometimes they're kind of a conduit for us into those lived experience voices. Okay, and then finally, pragmatic solutions into government. That's what we're all trying to do. I think one of the joys of our model is that it's baked in. So because the problem starts with government and that we don't let them go, we don't go away, find a problem and bring it back to them. We keep them involved in every stage of the project, even literally the project team they're seconded part-time into. So it's kind of baked in, and they have to agree with our policy insights because they help to draft them. So it's quite a helpful way of making sure that the implementation and the take-up of the solutions is good. And we also understand authorising environments in government, and so our EAG doesn't just have academic experts, it has very senior government colleagues on as well, so that the Deputy Secretary or the Exec Director, whoever it is in that government department, has been involved, has had oversight of the project and been involved in fortnightly EAG meetings for the entire 3 to 6 months, and they buy into the project, and it creates that authorising environment for the project team to then go in and implement the recommendations. So it's a pretty smart model and works really well when it works really well. So these are some of the current areas of work. As you can see around the outside, those are some specific examples of work that we're either doing or have just completed. So it's a wide range of public policy areas that we get involved in, all domestic policy right now, although that might change with our partnership with the Commonwealth Government. And in the centre, we're just sort of trying to make some sense around grouping some of these areas of policy engagement and problem solving. And on the left, you can see some of our key partners. some of you will understand government more closely than others, but those that know how government works, the central agencies, so the Cabinet Office, the Treasury, Prime Minister's Office, Premiers, whoever it is, however you describe your central agencies, we try and run our projects so that if we're doing it with communities and justice or education or health, that somebody from central agencies is involved as well. But again, it's just about understanding that authorising environment, that we are very keen for these to be cross-government approved or invested in, owned projects, so that Department of Education doesn't think this is a brilliant idea and then Treasury says no. So we do that kind of cross-government and central aid. I mean, I'm sure Sarah and others say this too all the time, but those kind of central agencies authorising environments alongside departments are really crucial to think about when you're doing that government engagement. Key stats, there's just some numbers around the number of engagements scale we've reached in 3 years, but I'll do a little bit more of that in a minute, which is now. So just to give you some insight, so over 630 direct engagements. We've facilitated 540 hours last year. So this is last financial year, in terms of bringing policymakers and experts into the room together. You don't get to count one of those hours unless you've got government and academic people in the room. And we facilitated 540 hours of that through our projects last year. Over 500 colleagues engaged or shared their expertise in various ways. And then on the right-hand side, the networks and the events are crucial for us as well. So over 1,500 colleagues from across government and our university partners and beyond attended our events or our workshops, seminars, discussion, whatever it might be. Over 115,000 website views, etc., etc. So you can see that we are building in just 3 years quite a healthy scale of connection and of course, for those that are really good at measuring impact, you'll realise that we are just measuring activity. We are not measuring impact on this slide, but actually sometimes demonstrating the scale of activity is quite important. And we do have an entire impact framework where we talk about the theory of change and the actual impact in policy change and all of those good things. So this is just us talking about how great we are and having photos with ministers and all the rest of it. But so I won't go on that. But yes, it's been a fantastic 3 years of experience and growth. And the reason we're doing as well as we are is absolutely because of the level and depth and commitment of support from our government partners and our university partners. And we really can't do any of this without them. We have a rule that we don't have any subject matter experts in our team. All of our experts come from our university partners and our projects come from government. So, there are some rules that we stick by that mean that we are bringing these two sides together for their value. So I think that's the final page. This is our senior team, some brilliant colleagues. There's about 25 colleagues in the team overall. Some brilliant colleagues that bring that experience across government and consulting and academia and bring it all together. So I'll stop there for now. I can dive into the different project methods, but I won't do that. I'll stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Libby. That was really fascinating, and I know represents a relatively quick canter as well, but felt like a really good comprehensive introduction. Please do use the raise hands function if you'd like to ask a question, or if you'd rather drop something into the chat and we can pull it out as we go. Duncan, you're quick off the mark. You're actually too quick because I wanted to ask a question first. So now I'm going to say, please be patient.